This time of year is one of my favorites. I feel like I say that a lot, but I'm genuinely, this time of year, this period of spring is always one of my favorites. A lot of times people think, oh, it's because of Mardi Gras. I'm a big fan of Mardi Gras. I was a judge for the King Cake Festival. No big deal, just saying. Yesterday. So it was a lot of fun. I love the Mardi Gras season. I think it's the best of our culture comes out. And when it's extreme, it's the worst, but typically it's the best of our culture, right? So I love that. There's just a lot of good things. I'm a fan of Lent, weirdly. Like, it's usually a good time for me to reset. So, like, as we're approaching Lent, I actually get excited about the things that we're going to do for Lent. But one of the main and biggest reasons why this is my favorite time of year is because of baseball season. And because baseball, like, has always been my favorite sport. If you've heard more than, like, 2 of my homilies, you knew that I grew up playing baseball. And people make fun of me all the time because I start every homily that way. But baseball has always been such a big part of my life. Like, it's had a fingerprint on my life for so long. Not only because I like to watch my team and cheer for my team, right? Nichols, 2-1, get a series win, week 1, right? But I like to pay attention to my team and all those kind of things. But, like, it was really, that was like the thing that, like, defined my childhood, my middle school years, even into high school. And it's kind of had a fingerprint on so many aspects of my life, from, like, my relationship with my dad to just what we did in our free time to just all of this stuff, right? It was kind of like, it's just been littered, and baseball has been such a big part of my life. So there's really, like, an element of nostalgia as I get into this time of year and just looking at, man, all the things that has been a part of my life leading up to today. One of the interesting things, though, and if you ever played a sport, if you ever were part of a sport, you know at some point it ends. And it's usually an interesting moment, like whether it's like as a kid, right, like, or with the sport of baseball, for example, whether it's like the first time you get beamed with a ball and you're like, nope, I'm done, this is dumb, and I put the bat down, put the ball down, put the glove down, and like, all right, I'm leaving it there, and I'm never playing Little League again. You can burn the hat, whatever, I don't care. I'm done, right? Sometimes it's like early on. Sometimes it's like as you get into high school. Sometimes it's like whenever I was in high school and someone told you weren't good enough, and it's over, and it's done on you. Like, sometimes it's after you graduate high school. Sometimes it's when you graduate college. Sometimes you get into like minors, majors, and it could be the last game of your Hall of Fame career, and you're saying thank you and having your bust put up in Cooperstown, right? Like, at some point, every athlete, their career ends. At some point, every athlete has played their last game, has done their last thing, right? Every singer has done their last concert. Like, at some point, those things end. I think of people, I remember, like, you know, mid to late 2000s, Brett Favre was at the top of the game, and he decided he's going to retire, and then he unretired, then he retired, then he unretired, then he retired, and he unretired, and then he played against the Saints in one game, and he was as purple as his Vikings jersey by the end of it, and then he quit, and he was like, I'm done, right? Like, I'm done. Like, at a certain point, I think, especially some of these people who are, like, at the top of their craft, you can see almost the struggle of retire, unretire, retire, unretire, because it's such a big part of their life. It's such a big part of what they've done and how they built their life, right? That it becomes more than just a job or more than just what they do. It really becomes an identity. And, like, they struggle with it. One of the most reverent moments and one of the most important moments that I've, like, come to notice, and being around, like, Edie White with football a little bit and being around Nichols with football a little bit, at the end of the year, the last game, it's like a reverent moment for seniors. Whether win, lose, or draw, whatever it is, like, their last time being on the field, there's usually a moment where it's just kind of, it's a sobering moment, right? And it's a reverent moment. And, like, if you have a chance to talk to somebody at that, like, I've learned, if you have a chance to talk to somebody at that moment, it's really just like, let them let out whatever they want to let out, right? And, like, let them cry. Because it's an emotional moment. Like, it's the end of a time, it's the end of a season, it kind of closes the book on a chapter, and all of a sudden it's over. As a high school kid, like I wanted to play baseball. I played baseball as a kid, and it was like I said, it was such a big part of my life. I get into my junior year, I got cut from the team, and now all of a sudden it's over. And I remember for me, I wasn't ready for it. So it became a lot less about like, man, I don't have something to do with my free time, or I don't have something to do with after school. But like, I had defined myself by so much around the sport and around being the right fielder for Central Lafourche's JV team. No big deal, I'll sign autographs later. But like, I had built up such such a persona and such an identity around that. Whenever that it was done, it wasn't about the question wasn't what I'm going to do now. The question was, who am I now? That's a very, very different question. I find it's not just with sports. I think it's an easy one to kind of understand. It's not just with sports. I remember a few years back, somebody that I love very dearly lost their job. And they had been in this job for 25 years, and they had defined themselves by being successful at this job, and they worked in this job, and they worked their way up from running around and selling stuff to being in an office in New Orleans, and all of a sudden this job had become a part of an identity. And whenever they walk into their boss's office one day, completely out of the blue, and the boss looks at them and says, "Turn your phone, turn your keys, and you're done." Oh. I feel like I'm on a boat in the middle of an ocean, rudderless, and just kind of floating because that's who I've been, and now that's gone. If you don't believe me, ask if you're somebody who's in school right now and you're approaching graduation and you don't know what's next, and graduation happens, all of a sudden it can go from I know exactly what I'm doing day to day, because of my schedule, because of my classes, because of my degree, right? All these things, and then all of a sudden you graduate and then that's over. And it could be some anxiety and worry, and you can feel like, man, I'm out in a boat in the middle of an ocean, rudderless, just floating. I say all that because the thing, so often, right, there are these different phases, different seasons, different things that we have in life, these different periods, whether it be school, whether it be sports, whether it be work, whatever it is, right? There's so many times that these different places, these different seasons, they come to an end at some point, right? Everything in this world at some point is going to end. It's kind of a morbid thought, it's kind of a sad thought, but the reality is, it's true, right? That the world is finite, and at some point, finite runs out. So things are going to end. I think today, our gospel in our first reading is addressing this topic for us. I think Jesus and the prophet Jeremiah in our readings today are addressing this exact topic for us. What do we build our life on? Do we build our life on something that is finite, that is going to end, or do we build our life on something that is eternal? In our gospel today, in the Gospel of Luke, we get Luke's version of the Beatitudes. Now, if you think of the Gospels, you can think of it as the mystery of Christ is like a multifaceted diamond, and the Gospels are all looking at Jesus from different angles, right? Different authors, different angles. So today when we hear about this, it's the same teaching as the Beatitudes, right? The Beatitudes that you hear in Matthew's Gospel, blessed are the poor in spirit, for they shall inherit the kingdom of God. Blessed are the pure of heart, they shall see God, right? Those 8 ones that you probably learned in religion class at some point in your life or heard at some point in your life that I can't quote because I'm not that good, right? And we probably had to remember, then we all forgot after the test, right? But those 8 Beatitudes that are there, that's Matthew's version. That's the ones that typically, if you go to a funeral and you hear the Beatitudes, that's the one you hear, right? Well, today we get Luke's version. And Luke's version, the reason why they're not as popular is because they're a little bit more pointed and a little bit more forward. Because we don't only get Beatitudes, we also get woes. We also get warnings that follow them. But if you notice, they coincide with each other. So today what we hear is, blessed are you who are poor, for the kingdom of God is yours. Good thought, right? Usually beatitude is something hard, but you're going to be blessed later, right? So blessed are you who are poor, for the kingdom of God is yours. But the first woe coincides with it, and it says, but woe to you who are rich, for you have received your consolation. It's rough. It's harsh. Woe to you who are rich. Woe to you who are filled now, not hungry. Woe to you who laugh now and don't grieve. Woe to you who have people speak highly of you and aren't insulted for the kingdom of God. Like Luke is laying it on heavy today. Now, first off, I want to be very clear. What Luke is not saying is, if you're rich, you're damned. If you're filled, you're damned. If you laugh, you're damned. Thank God, right? Like, because I'm goof off too much. If you, right? If people speak highly of you, if you have a good reputation, you're damned. Like, that is not what Luke is saying. But what Luke is saying, and what Luke is saying that Jesus is saying, is that if you build your life on those things, you're going to falter. Because blessed are you who are rich. Woe to you who are rich, for you will experience desolation. Well, if you build your life on being rich, what happens when it's over? If you build your life on being able to be filled and be fat and happy, what happens when you're starving? If you build your life on people talking good about you, what happens whenever they don't? If you build your life on just revelry and happiness, excesses of life, what happens whenever you're sad? What Jesus is pointing at in today's gospel, very, very simply, is do not build your life on the things of the world, because they're bound to fail. The things of the world are bound to fail. But build your life on the things of heaven. See, this is what Jeremiah says today. He says, cursed is the one who trusts in human beings. Cursed is the one who builds his life on the things of the world, right? Who builds his life on the things that human beings say is important, right? Cursed is the one who builds his life on, who trusts in human beings. But, he goes on to say, blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord. Blessed is the one who builds his life on the things of heaven. Blessed is the one who builds his life on the relationship with God. So it begs the question for us, I think, today. Where have you built your life? Where do you have your feet planted? In the worldly things or in the things of the Lord? Now, you're at Mass at 9 p.m. on a Sunday. And you have taken on the risk of coming to one of my Masses, because who knows if I'm going to preach for 20 minutes or 30 minutes or 40 minutes, right? So you're willing to give up sleep because you came to Mass tonight. Now, the reason why I say that is it's very, very important for us. Every one of us, we don't come to Mass at 9 p.m. if we're not at least hoping to say that I'm building my life on the things of God, right? We have all, at some point, most of us have probably sat in some kind of a retreat context or a Catholic school context, a religion class context, and what happens is when you ask a question, everybody wants to sound better than they actually are. So we all want to probably say and are tempted to say, this is where I am. I'm built my life on the things of heaven, on the things of God. I'm doing great, okay, right? But chances are, if you're honest with yourself, I know if I'm honest with myself, I have a tendency to live firmly rooted in the things of the world. If this isn't you, I apologize. And I'm projecting, and if it is you, then hear me out. How often do you say, oh man, Father, I went to confession for the first time in a while, or I went to a Mass and the priest really spoke to me, or I did these things, I'm praying a rosary, I showed up at the Adoration Chapel, whatever it is, right? I'm building my life on the things of heaven. But in practice, right, on Sunday we might be there, but on Monday morning, you can bet your butt that this is where I'm standing. Because what am I scheduled for the day? What's the next meeting I got to go to? What's the next thing I have to do? What's the next fire I have to put out? The next issue I have to deal with? The next time I'm going to get aggravated because the schedule changed? The next time I get stood up in something, right? I find myself, I don't know if anybody else, but I find myself, as much as I want to say that I'm building my life on things of God, right? That so often I'm building my life and living my life from a posture of right here on the things of the world. I can imagine somebody saying, Father, I got 6 kids. I really don't have a choice. I'm running from thing to thing, club to club, sport to sport. I'm bringing one kid here. I'm on my way to do that over there. I don't have a free time for my life, right? Like I constantly I'm working a full-time job. I'm doing this. I'm doing that, right? A student. I'm working on. I got this going on. I got this going on. I got to practice for Songfest again, right? I got to go to this. I got to go to that. I got to be at this. I got to be at that, right? I have a test coming up. I have a paper coming up. I have this going on. I have people asking me to do this and leading this and talking about this and showing up at that. Like I have a bunch of stuff. It is really, really hard for us to say, I'm not living in the things of the world. And what typically happens in that is our relationship with God, our relationship with religious things, turns into us coming up for a breath of fresh air. I am drowning 6 days a week, 5 days a week. And I come up for a breath of fresh air, and I hope and pray that I can maybe reach out to God just for a minute, for an hour. Become the mom ass an hour and a half, right? And what ends up happening a lot of times whenever we live like that is that we stay in the things of the world. We're surrounded by the things of the world. We're planted in the things of the world. And every time we do this, like over the course of our life, the hope is that just when I come up for air, I can reach a little bit closer. And the next time I come for air, I can reach a little bit closer. And hopefully by the end of my life, I'm actually close enough to God where, you know what? Whenever it's the end of my life, I'm reaching to you, you're reaching to me, and maybe you're going to just pluck me out of the things of the world and bring me into heaven, and then you're going to like take a picture and wave at the camera because like I'm the big fish. Yay, you caught me, right? Heaven's not a destination. Heaven's not just a destination that we're trying to get to with our breath in between the craziness of worldly things. St. Augustine talks about this. The world, the way in which the world dictates the pace of life and all these things is so opposite of the way that the Lord wants to. If we're not going to build our life on the things of the world, what's the corollary? What's the other option? What's building our life and focusing on the things of heaven, things of our relationship with God. One of the most powerful moments I had as a priest up to this point, I've been a priest now for 8 years, roughly going on 8 years. And it was Hurricane Ida, the week after Hurricane Ida. So Hurricane Ida hit on a weekend. 6 days later, we had our first Sunday Mass at our parish after Hurricane Ida. Now, we had Mass throughout the course of the week. What we do is we just prop the doors open, we'd celebrate Mass, and maybe we get like 1, 2, 3 people from the neighborhood that would show up. But for the most part, it was really just me and my associate pastor, and that was it. So what we decided was we were going to have a Mass at 9 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, the week after Hurricane Ida. No power, no nothing, but we said, we're going to prop the doors open to the church. We're going to hope that there's a breeze, right? I put more candles on the altar than I knew what to do with, to the point that it looked like a freaking bonfire, right? Like, we had this whole thing going on, and I remember we spread word through like just the neighborhood and through like our different people and different channels that we could, because communication was limited, and we just kind of put word out there that, hey, 9 o'clock, St. Hilary, we're having Mass. And whenever, I still remember when I walked out, I was expecting to probably have 20 or 30 people, but the gossip circles of Central Lafourche were very, very active and very, very good. So when I walked out, there were 250 people waiting in church for us. And I remember walking in and just being floored, right? Dark church, all kind of people, bunch of loud Cajun women. It was great. Like, it was good. I walk in, and it was one of the cool moments, like, after I got inside and was kind of over the initial shock of the amount of people, the next thing that stuck out to me was the amount of people that were emotional. And the reason why was because it was the first time in a week that they had seen most of these people. And you know, when you go to 9 o'clock Mass, you got your 9 o'clock Mass people. And those 9 o'clock Mass people, if they're not there for a couple of weeks, you start thinking, is somebody sick? Is somebody dead? Is somebody okay? Like, right, is everybody fine? So it was the first time that people were starting to see other members of the parish community, and they were like, you're okay, and we're okay, and we survived. And I remember I walked in, and there was a gentleman, him and his wife would sit in the front row of church. And I walked in, and I remember walking in and seeing him. He was lit up, beaming. Smile from ear to ear. You could see the tears were in his eyes, and they just weren't quite falling yet, right? And I walked up to him, I gave him a hug, and I looked at him, I said the question that everybody said at that time. I was like, how did y'all make out for the storm? And he's standing there, he's smiling, and he looks at me and says, we lost everything. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. Like what I'm seeing, there's dissonance here, right? Like this, your face doesn't, your words don't match your face. Like there's something off here, man. And he just goes, we lost everything. But we get to come to the most important thing. I point out that moment because that's somebody that understood after materially losing everything. Their house was destroyed. They had nothing left. But somebody who had materially lost everything understood that those things, you can replace things, you can't replace people, right? You replace things, you can't replace your faith. Like, he understood for a moment, like, the things of the world pass, they end, they go away, they're decaying, they're dying. The things of the world disappear, they end. But the things of the Lord are everlasting. If heaven, for a person that's living in the things of the world, heaven is a destination that I just try and reach for and reach for and reach for, and hopefully at some point our reaching meets each other, and like me and God touch hands, and then good, I'm there with him, right? If that's what the things of the world, like the person that's living in the things of the world, if that's how they relate to heaven, then it's the very opposite when it comes to a person living for the things of the Lord. Because what we realize is somebody who says, I am building my life on the things of God, and that's it. I'm not going to be dictated by the things of the world. Obviously, we got to like go to work and stuff, but you know what I mean? Like, if I'm going to live my life and value the things of God as the foundation of my life, then heaven is not a destination. Heaven is a person. And heaven is a person, a relationship that I can embrace right now. Heaven becomes a person that I come to meet when I come to Mass, when I bow my head to pray, when I go to confession, when I pray the rosary, whenever I'm in good community and reading the Bible or whatever it is, right? Heaven becomes a person that I walk with, right? Because what is all of heaven going to be? Us face to face with God for all eternity. We can start that now. We do start that now. When we come to Mass tonight, we're getting a foretaste of heaven. We're going to enter into communion with God himself, with Jesus Christ in the Eucharist, right? Like, heaven is a person. And that has no end. That is eternal. Now, the one thing that I do want to caution you about, though, is that just because I say I'm living for the things of heaven, just because I say I'm living in communion with God for all eternity, just because I say that I'm building my life on the things of God and not the things of the world, right? That does not mean that it won't be hard. That doesn't mean there won't be hardship. That doesn't mean there won't be difficulty. Notice what Jeremiah says, and I'm going to end it with this. He is like a tree. Blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, who hopes in the Lord. He is like a tree planted beside the water that stretches out its roots to the stream, right? He is like a cypress tree planted next to the bayou. They're not going anywhere, right? They're nice, they're healthy, they're fed, they have everything they need, right? But he continues, it fears not the heat when it comes. Its leaves stay green. In the year of drought, it shows no distress. It still bears fruit. The thing is that because I say, yes, Lord, I want to live my life founded on the foundations of you. I want to build my life in a relationship with you. I want to say yes to you always, everywhere. I'm not going to be dictated by the things of the world. That does not mean that hardship doesn't come. What it does mean is that I am rooted and I can survive it. I can endure it. That your foundation isn't shaken or in fear of anything the world, the devil, or anybody else has to offer. And that I'm going nowhere. That I'm rooted in you, Lord. Popular Christianity has taken this idea of I'm going to give myself to God, and then all of a sudden he's going to bless me with everything. That's BS, to be very frank. The prosperity gospel is a lie. Because it doesn't mean whenever I say, yes, I give myself to God, that now all of a sudden he's going to pay my bills and I'm going to be successful. What it does mean when I say I'm going to give myself to God is that whenever I endure hardship, Lord, that you're going to give me the grace to get through it. And if Jesus Christ himself had to do it, because we have a dead guy hanging on the wall in the back wall of church, right? If Jesus Christ himself can endure the suffering and the hardship that the world has to offer, then he says, so can you, if you stay rooted with me. Tonight when we come to Mass, we come committing ourselves saying, yes, Lord, I want to live in relationship with you always. I don't want to give in to the lie and the distress and the anxiety and the struggle that the world has, because you know what? Those means of dealing with it are passing away and they're faulty. But you are not. You are true. May tonight, as we come to Mass, we recognize the places that we're still rooted in the worldly things, in worldly remedies. And we ask the Lord to just give us the grace to let go, so that we can be with him, rooted in him, set on his foundation. And as Jeremiah says, as one of those who are blessed, who trust in the Lord.